Hi, I have a bad connection apparently, so hopefully this will stay. Welcome to my first virtual quilt show, my first trunk show, my first Facebook Live. So many firsts here, you have no idea how nervous I am. So my company is called Pretty Piney Quilts, and it's kind of a weird name, but you can see behind me, see the pine trees? I live in the Pine Barrens of southern New Jersey, and people who live in the pines are known as pineys, and they have kind of a reputation, and I don't really live up to that reputation so much, but someone once called me Pretty Piney, so I will take it. And now I will flip this camera around and start showing you some quilts. So I'm glad you're here. Let me know where you're from, and let's see if I can do this and see what I'm doing. Hi, Tanya from Alabama. This iPad is really heavy and I accidentally put the camera lens at the bottom, so I got to try not to cover it. So this very first quilt here, I made it in 2016. It's a mini, it's like 24 inches square. It's called More Alike. Hey Lily. And this was like the quilt that it kicked off my life as a designer. It's named for the Maya Angelou poem called Human Family, and it says in there that we are more alike than we are unalike. It's paper pieced, it's all hand dyed fabric except the background is Kona indigo, and I've always loved it. I did like a scrappy binding there. Hi Ethel. And I never made a pattern for this. Hi Patty. But it was the one that everyone started to take interest in. And I live on a working cranberry farm, so there are going to be pickup trucks driving past. So they might yell out the window at me, who knows. Anyway, hang on just a second. Hi. And my next quote here, this was my first pattern. It's called Meteor Watch, and you can see it's loosely based on More Alike, but it's a lot simpler. It's not paper pieced. It doesn't have like those gradations of color. If you look closer, this one's all from grunge, and it's pretty easy to make. But the thing with this one is it's got a ton of negative space, and I sent it off to my friend Jo for quilting, and she did a stunning job. She did some like a ghost quilting in there of the falling stars, and there's a flatbed truck coming now. So they're supposed to be at lunch, but they're not. Hey Mickey. And, anyway, this quilt, I entered it in a juried show. It was at Oaks in the Pennsylvania National Quilt Extravaganza a couple years ago, and it got a blue ribbon for best use of negative space, for which I thank Jo for doing such a fantastic job. So my next one, this is Saltwater Taffy, and this was one that came up as part of a challenge from the Island Boutique Ambassadors program, which I was part of that program last year. And the idea was to take a quilt, a vintage quilt, and reimagine it. So this was one that I found in a book about quilts that were documented from the state of New Jersey, and it was made by a young boy in the late 1800s in the area that my mother's family is from. And my mom is watching, so hi Mom. I took this quilt and I did some research into him and his family, and I went on a field trip. I visited his grave. I visited the mill where he worked as an adult, and he used to take the scraps home and make quilt tops out of them because he was a quilter his whole life. And I named it Saltwater Taffy because he lived near Ocean City, New Jersey, which is where I went to high school. And he made it around the time Saltwater Taffy was kind of becoming a thing. And I imagined that as a boy, when he was done quilting, he liked to go to the boardwalk and eat saltwater taffy. So it's all pieced, and the quilting, it's all a single line spiral. And I learned how to do that with the book Walk by Jackie Gehring, and I think it looks fantastic. And thanks, Andy. I love yours too. So the next up, this is Pippin. It's named after a variety of apple because the center of the blossom reminds me of apple seeds. And this is the only quilt pattern that I've written that is applique so far. It's real simple. It's all fusible raw edge applique, and it looks really cool because of the transparency effect. If you choose the right fabrics, you can really emphasize that effect. And there's all kinds of negative space that you can use to show off your quilting, which is probably better than mine, but I was in a hurry. It's a really quick and easy finish. And one of my pattern testers has used the center motif just to make pillows out of that, which I think looked fabulous and was a great idea. So next up, this is sticky candy. Sticky candy, I have a sew along going right now. And yeah, Lily, the Saltwater Taffy, that was part of the reason why I picked it when I chose the fabrics for it. That's what it reminded me of, and it just all worked out so beautifully. It's one of my favorite quilts. But sticky candy, I've got a sew along going on right now. So you guys are the first ones to get a look at my finished top on the one on the right for the sew along. That's the cover quilt I did using Allison Glass fabrics, and so I decided to do it a little differently with this one, and I made it so the background was green, and the blue and the green are kind of really similar in value. And I'm not sure that I really like it, but I really like how it shows how different the quilt can look depending on the fabrics you use. So the sew along is still going on, and it's going to wrap up soon, but the posts are going to stay on the blog, and you can sign up for the newsletter and get all the bonus material. I'm putting in links so that you can go back and look at whatever you missed. And this is going to be a featured pattern on the inventory quilt along for Just Wanna Quilt. So I'll be making another version of it, and it's going to be scrappier. So watch for that. This one is star-crossed plaid. Yeah, Lisa, I'm so glad I could do this outside. It's been rainy and windy for so freaking long that I was delighted to have the chance to be able to come out and enjoy this, listening to the bees and the birds. All right, star-crossed plaid was another Island Batik Ambassador project, and it was supposed to be made using your AccuQuilt Go cutter. It's all pieced, and it's another one you can kind of get a transparency effect on it. And I just liked it. You can see I've always liked astronomy because I've got stars in a couple of my quilts, and there are always so many flying geese. I've heard from people that don't much like flying geese, so I'll try and steer them to the patterns that don't really have them. So next up, this is a free tutorial I have, and it is called Sketchy. And I came up with an idea. I wanted to have a stack of little quilt sandwiches near the sewing machine for warming up or practicing free quilting on. And I thought it would be fun to have something that I could turn into another quilt. So I came up with this, and it looks like a children's toy, which is why it's a free tutorial, because I don't want to infringe on anybody. And you can do it either quilt as you go, like I did with this one, or you can piece it all and then go in and quilt it. And this isn't finished yet because I have to decide what to do with the last 4 screens. So I put in a little free motion into each one with something about my life. And there are a couple that I want to add something about my kids, and I'm thinking maybe I'll get some of their pictures from when they were children and interpret them into free motion, and then I'll have to go in and figure out what to do with all the borders. But I thought I'd show you what I've done on that. It's kind of an old UFO, but once again, that's a free pattern that's on the website. So this was from a row along that I participated in a couple years ago. It's a blog hop where everyone was supposed to kind of do an illustration of their happy place. And my happy place is at the beach on a deck with books and a cup of coffee. Now, earlier this year in January, I was had this idea just thinking about T-Rex. And I just made a quick little mug rug. It's all raw edge applique. It comes together really quickly. A friend of mine, she made it larger so she could make placemats for her kids. So this one came up real fast, and it's not hard to do. It doesn't work up. The only thing is that tea bag there, it's really, really tiny, and the eyeball is pretty tiny, but you'll manage. My favorite mug rugs, though, are the Ransom Note mug rugs. And these are a free tutorial on the blog, and that tutorial includes how to do the faux flange binding. And these are quilt as you go. And there's another one. There's one that's cookies too, but I don't know where that went. I think maybe I gave it to somebody and I forgot. I haven't the slightest idea. I'll have to make another one. I was thinking about it the other day, and you know, with these letters, you can do like chocolate. You could also do cocoa, or you could do taco, whatever you want. But I have instructions on the website about how to print up your own lettering if you want, so you can make it say whatever you want. Now, I'm moving on. I've got some art quilts. I don't have a lot of my own patterns yet. I haven't been designing for very long. So this one is called Come In, Sit Down, Relax, Converse. And it's an homage to my grandmother's kitchen. It's a family favorite. I used Derwent Inktense pencils, and I printed up some of these images myself and just cut them out and stitched them to the wall. The stitching there for the tablecloth, that was inspired by a quilt by Cassandra Beaver. This curtain, it's an actual piece of the curtain that hung in my grandmother's kitchen, which is coincidentally on the other side of these trees back there across the road. I don't know if you can see it. I'm holding the iPad up really high. But anyway, so I live really close to all of my family. And most of my art quilts are inspired by my family or by where I live. This one is called Shelter, and it's based on a photo that I took of my kids. And it was for a prompt for my art quilt group that was windows. And my thoughts were that I wanted to. I'm missing a piece. My daughter's shirt came off, or part of her shirt, not her whole shirt. This is going very badly right now. All right, so anyway, this is from a quote that people are like stained glass windows. They sparkle and shine when the sun is out, but when the darkness sets in, their true beauty is revealed only if there is a light from within. And it kind of has a double meaning because our last name is Fenstermaker, which means window maker in German. Thanks, Emily. You're always so supportive. And thank you, Carol. And all right, so here, this was another Island Batik Ambassador Challenge. And it's from a technique by Lori Cisse Landry. And hopefully these trucks will be done going by soon. This was based on a photo by my friend Ben Russet that was from our farm's 125th anniversary party. And it has its own double meaning, which didn't even occur to me until after I made it, and I decided to name it Casual Fans, because my brother did this really cool project a while ago where he visited all of the minor league baseball stadiums east of the Mississippi in one season. It was pretty amazing. I'm not quite sure how he pulled it off. But, I got to show you the back of this thing too, because I'm so proud of it. So I really like it. I would hang it either way, but this one hangs up in my living room. All right, this is from my art quilt group. Is called Birds on a Thread, and our challenge was to create a bird that represents us. And they're going to, like, if we have a display, our first show was canceled last month, but these are supposed to hang up over top of our other quilts. It's kind of like our signature. And hypothetically, there will be some kind of a thread running between them all to connect them. So my bird is a mockingbird. They don't normally eat cranberries, but I took a little artistic license. But I figure I'm like a mockingbird because I listen to everyone else's music and I take pieces of their songs and I patch them all together and turn it into my own unique song. So then this one, I never named it, so I'm just calling it that umbrella quilt. And it's based on a photo that a friend of mine from the Army took, and he gave me permission to make a quilt from it. And I used, actually, hey Cheryl, I saw Cheryl Lynch was on here. I used your mini mosaic tool to cut these background squares. And so it's just, I used that, I did some beading on there. This was for a challenge that was black to white and what was it, red or another color? I think it was another color. But I got a kick out of using the zipper for the edge there. I think it just, I don't know, gives it a really cool look. This one hangs in my hallway. And I have no idea how I'm doing on time because there's no clock that shows up on this screen here. This was for a mask challenge. And I took some pictures. Some of them are family. Some of them are family friends. Some of them, I'm not sure who they are, but maybe they're family. The one down here in the bottom in the middle, that's my great-grandmother. But I took it as like, they're my people that are masked by time. I don't really know who they are. I don't know much about them. So they're all disguised in their own way. So I laid it out on Photoshop, and I printed the photos on a single sheet of paper or fabric, and then I printed a phrase, a quote. I'm often inspired by quotes on twill tape, and then I added some color with the Derwent Inkjet pencils and some embroidery. I had taken a class on Creative Bug and was feeling inspired. Oh, thanks, Carol. I'm almost done. So the quote is, "Our mothers and grandmothers have more often than not anonymously handed on the creative spark, the seed of the flower they themselves never hoped to see." And it's from Alice Walker. And my last art quilt, this was for an upcycle challenge. And it's made of coffee bags, an inner tube, tea bags, and 2 USB charging cables. And the batting is from just scraps of batting, and I used a quilt top that I cut up and had been using to practice on my long arm, and I didn't like it, so I cut off the end of it to use for the backing. So that's all I've got right now for the trunk show. I'm gonna see if I can flip this thing around again so I can talk to you some more. And all right, so oh yeah, now you see me with my reading glasses. Anyway, so I'm Becca, and I'm glad you joined me today. I've got a coupon code for anyone who wants to go over to my website, which is prettypiny.com, and it's one-time use, 25% off a downloadable quilt pattern that expires at the end of April 2020. And the coupon code is Quilt Candy, all one word. Next up at 1 is Cherry Guidry, and I'm looking forward to seeing what she has to say. So thank you so much. Thank you all for being here. And thanks, Carol, for trying to keep me on time.